So talk to me about gratitude or appreciation, because I think, like, on one level, it's easy to be gratitude for on one level, it's easy to be grateful for the obvious things like a sunset or, your health or whatever. But I feel like the practice you've talked about is incisive is not the right word. You're trying to be grateful for smaller, less obvious things.
And it's a distinction between gratitude and appreciation that I'm really trying to call out in particular. Distinction is gratitude is almost transactional, where you're getting something to then have that feeling of gratitude to be able to express it.
Yeah.
Where I would argue appreciation is a foundational element that you can have regardless. I can have appreciation for this table. I don't need to have gratitude for it. I can be grateful for the fact that it's holding this up and it's here in this moment and it's, being a part of this conversation. But it's much more likely that I can just appreciate it. I can appreciate the fact that it looks like it's got a couple leaves on it and it folds in. And I can appreciate the fact that it's probably quite old and was probably handcrafted. And to me, that starts to create these levels of understanding that gratitude won't let you get to, because you just see it as like, okay, cool, here's this thing, thank you. But because I got something in a lot of cases, where appreciation allows you to start to unlock these layers, and the more that you can do that on a consistent basis, the book I'm in the process of writing and the overall thought is, if you can get addicted to that train of thought, then you can unlock so much in your world on a day-to-day basis that can allow you to have more gratitude, that can allow some of the smaller things.
Because first you have to notice it before you can be grateful for it.
It's noticing it and at least understanding it a little bit more to see it from a slightly different angle. The subway pulling up that's packed and you're like, fuck, I don't want to get on that thing. Everyone's going to be sweaty. It's going to be gross. I'm going to be late again, etc. And if you can get into this train of thought, and there were these times where I struggled with why is my brain going to this place? It doesn't make sense. I wonder how many people a subway car actually holds.
Yeah.
Because I appreciate the fact that it was super complicated for them at some point to be like, let's start to dig up the streets and put these crazy tunnels down there.
It's crazy. This is 100 years old.
Yeah.
It costs $2.
Right. And I think that there's a huge distinction between, I get upset about these things that happen in my life on a daily basis. Milk is wrong in my coffee. It rained today. My paper on my desk got wet for whatever the stupid little things are that throw people off kilter. And the element of not necessarily gratitude, because again, I think that forces somebody into a position of, how can I be thankful for these things around me?
Yeah.
And I need to stop and be very cognizant and make sure that this is also received on the other side.
Yeah.
Versus, let me just appreciate some of the basic elements, which will make any inconveniences not only less stressful, but I can also look at them from a different angle. Why did the milk get messed up in the coffee for the fourth straight day? Is it bad process? Did they have the thing labeled incorrectly in the back? Did that person just not get trained well?
Right.
And it's like this weird space where curiosity and gratitude and understanding, at least at a high level, all combine. And if you can see that on a consistent basis, I think it can unlock not only more happiness on a day-to-day basis, because you're just kind of like, cool, everything's pretty dope. I could never design that light. Yeah. That light is nuts. But I know that people sat around in meetings for God knows how long and were like, is this the right size for it? How many watts does it need? All this kind of stuff that I would never fathom. And I can just see that out of the corner of my eye, and I'm cool with that, but I don't need to have gratitude for it. And so I think that there's this untapped area of appreciation, even though it's potentially an overused word, that can get people to look at things differently.
No, I totally agree. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius has a bunch of different passages where he notices these things that are kind of ugly, but he's finding what's beautiful about them. He's talking about a grain of wheat that's sort of heavy because it's grown out. He talks about the way an olive sort of grows ripe and then it falls down and then it sort of decay. He's talking even the process of decay, which can stink and is dirty. just how that works. And then he's like, why does the bread, when you put it in the oven, why does it like crack open when it's finished baking? Like he just kind of, he's going through the world like a poet, and he's noticing things that like, yeah, maybe only a child would notice, or someone high on mushrooms would notice, but like we just take for granted. And so we see the world as ugly because we're looking for like traditionally beautiful or wonderful things instead of appreciating the absurdity of existence, the wonder of existence, the ordinary of existence, and just sort of cultivating, like, first off, how crazy is it that like the things you want at a grocery store are there without you having said that you wanted them? Like they just know. Not like they just know the right amount in the right time. Just like the coordination of that, with even though there actually is no coordination. And so the ability to notice these things. And I think appreciation, I like the distinction between appreciation and gratitude, because you don't need to appreciate that the drink is there in the cooler at the grocery store. It's supposed to be there, and yet it's there, and that's nice. And to sort of see it that way is...
And it can also unlock your brain's ability to see the world around you and understand it in ways where that drink in that cooler, if you have that pause of like, oh, that's cool, you're like, I wonder how many they sell in a day. I wonder who that distributor is. I wonder how long that one's been sitting on the shelf. All of a sudden, especially as people are trying to navigate, like, what the hell do I do with my life? What do I do for a living? And especially if you're floating in the corporate space, you're like, I don't know marketing or sales.
That was somebody's job.
Like, right, exactly. That was somebody's job. And also you're starting to ask questions in your head that are going to unlock answers like, who manufactures the cans versus the beverage, and like where might that actually be happening, and then how far does it have to get transported, and does it need a cooler truck, or can it go in? And if you can at least start to think that way, you don't have to go get those answers, but then your curiosity starts to unlock this entire world that's existing around you on a consistent basis. It can take the person that's like, I want to be in sports for a living, and thinks player, manager, agent, work for a team. And they're like, holy shit, I could work at a place that makes the seats for the stadiums. It gets those massive construction grants to go and like do these things.
All the hidden parts that go into the thing that you were taking for granted.
Totally.
I think this is helpful as a parent too. Like someone pointed out once to me that like this room wasn't dirty, it was well played in. The distinction between seeing it as like a bug or a feature, like it's supposed to be this way. This is why we bought the toys, right? Like, is the house supposed to be clean, or is the house supposed to be used? And so like the Stoics talk about like what handle you're going to grab a situation by. And so the decision to grab it by like the one that's positive, that affirms how things are, instead of the one that wishes they were otherwise or resents how they are. And then also when your kids do things, even things that they're not supposed to do, I'm never not fascinated by their explanations as to why they did it. And a lot of times there's a perverse logic to it. Like it's logic to a 7-year-old, and it's logic that will get you thrown in jail if you're older. Like it's not socially accepted logic. But I get why you think you doing this thing is actually your brother's fault. That's interesting to me. And it takes the edge off of it. And then I at least have empathized with you and connected with you, and you feel a little bit heard. And so, there's something like, I appreciate what you're saying does not mean I accept what you're saying or condone what you're saying. But like, I get it. And that's like the first step.
And it just allows you to look at things through this lens of, you're not going to, it's like what is outside of your control, right? There's that entire distinction of you can only worry about what's in your control versus, but you can have that awareness and curiosity. And so when my daughter goes and plays with makeup and comes downstairs, and I have 1,000 questions about what happened in her room and all these kinds of things, I want to take a step back and just appreciate the fact that like you must have had fun. and you came downstairs and you're proud of the way that this turned out. And God, do I love you for a million years just for this one moment alone.
Yeah.
And same for the bread in the oven where you don't quite know, like, why did that can't control that.
Yeah.
But if you can understand that you can't control it and you can still just kind of, then like all of a sudden, all these things that are outside of your control are just these like interesting nuances to daily life versus like, I'm not quite sure what to do because all of these things are happening. And where do I grasp for control? Where do I not? No, I just exist. And if I can make the most out of this moment right here and now, but still be cognizant and not let it become so overwhelming that it then burdens me, but appreciate and be cognizant, then I feel like you can be in a more, especially in a batshit crazy world like we are in right now, where there's just a bazillion things all the time and horrific and beautiful all happening like simultaneously. That distinction of it's there, I can appreciate it, I don't have to let it too far in.
Yeah.
I can dive deeper if I want to, but I better be fucking present right now or else the rest of it doesn't matter.